Hey everyone, Bowling with the Fef here. I want to start out by talking a little bit about Serbski's Club. You may remember them from several episodes ago where three of the guys did the show and talked about the history of their team based at Village Bowl in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. And that episode has gained more than 1,000 views. So to commemorate that, they posted on Facebook offering a garden flag to the first 10 people to comment on it. So I shared it on the Bowling with the Fef page. I just said, the Serbski's Club, masters of the merch game, in hopes of just getting that to a wider audience. Well, they decided to send me a garden flag, and you can see it right here. They said they would not accept payment for it, even though I offered. And it also came with a note. And that note reads, Fef, a little birdie told me you have a birthday coming up. And I do. It's a little less than 2 weeks away. So we figured, what better way to celebrate than with a BWTF garden flag. Happy birthday, Fef, Iggy, and the Serbskis Nation. And sure enough, here it is. A logoed garden flag. Mark Ignatowski tells me this is one of two in existence. And to receive this is incredibly special. So thanks, guys. And it's also a bright spot in what was otherwise a very sad weekend for me. And I'll get to that in a second. But thank you, Serbskis Nation. And now, let's start the show. Well, back here on Bowling with the Fef tonight. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. For those of you who are here live, if you're watching on replay, no sweat. Make sure you make a comment or two if you have any questions or comments about the show, about our guests. If you're live, there's the live chat. We would love to hear from you. Give a little shout out. Tell us where you're from. And we have another very interesting bowling story today with two great guests to share with you in just a moment. I want to start out with a couple items. First of all, I want to say happy birthday to my mom, Ma Fef. She's got a birthday today. She watches every show religiously, most of them live, a couple of them here and there recorded, but that's okay. She's celebrating a birthday today. I don't dare tell you how old she is, but hope she's having a fantastic day down in the Milwaukee area and has a very happy birthday. Congratulations to EJ Tackett and Deandra Asbeatty. They are the winners of the Lucy Doubles down in Texas over the weekend. You might remember Tackett and Marshall Kent took the Roth-Holman doubles in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin earlier in the year. And Asbeatty won the mixed doubles crown with Brian Voss back in 2010. If you check out episode 22, she talks at length about that tournament, about that win. And it is a great story. So I would highly recommend checking it out if you haven't done so already. Well, I wish I had better news about Joey Buckles. We had talked about him in the past. He was the guest on episode 18. We lost him late last week. Joey was a content creator, creator of the Utopian Baseball Universe YouTube channel, corresponding Facebook group. He was a published author, baseball lover, a friend for decades. We bowled in junior leagues at Brown Deer Lanes in the mid-'80s. He hadn't been in the sport for many years, but really had fond memories of bowling in juniors and winning an 8-pin no-tap tournament back in those days. In episode 18, we talked about his times in bowling and baseball, all that good stuff. He also told me what he had planned moving forward.
This baseball project, I think, is my main creative focus right now. But everything's connected. If that is making me happy, that's going to help me get better physically. And if I'm better physically, then you're going to see me on those bowling lanes at some point. I'm going to win I've got the 8-pin tap tournament. I'm going after the 9-pin tap, baby. But as far as like what I see for my future, as far as like who I am, it's the baseball. If that gets me back into writing, if that gets me back into coaching, I haven't completely slammed the door on maybe playing in a rec league or something again. Finally get to pitch off a mound. It's baseball and bowling. It's the two loves,
And Two Loves, because that was the name of a book that he published back in 2008. Joey was just 46 years old, and my heart goes out to his family and friends and those who cherish memories of what he did, a uniter of people online, and just a great friend over the years. Really sad about that. Bowling with the Fef is brought to you by Chip Magnet Salsa. You've probably heard me talk about Chip Magnet if you've watched this show before. Chip Magnet, a family business in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, distributing to stores in 38 states and Canada. If you're in Racine, you can find it at Woodman's, Festival, Piggly Wiggly, Meyer, Pick and Save, and Mariano's. Or you can go to chipmagnetsalsa.com. Chip Magnet Salsa, raise your snack standards. So let's get to our guests tonight. And they are from separate locales, but both have history in southeastern Wisconsin. So I want to bring them on right now. We are talking to Rich and Jenny Wonders. As I take the time to get them both on the screen. Rich in the middle, of course, Jenny on the right side of your screen. Thank you so much for coming. Rich, I want to talk, as we start here, about the USBC Open Championships tournament this year. You hadn't bowled it in quite a while, more than 10 years, and you two bowled doubles this year. So tell me how that came to be and what that experience was like for you.
Well, I had really no interest in bowling, but my daughter and her fiance have two teams. The guy dropped off the B team, and Todd asked me if I wanted to bowl, and I said no. And Jenny said, if we had our names up on the board, they put like an eagle up there next to it designating winners. And because we're the only father-daughter duo to both have titles at the men's national tournament, she thought that would be cool to get pictures. So she twisted my arm and I decided to bowl.
Okay. And was it worth it?
For that, it was well worth it. My bowling sucked, but that was secondary.
Jenny, did you were you pretty confident that you could convince him to make the trip and bowl?
No. I actually thought Todd had a better shot at convincing him than I did, but when he shot Todd down, I was like, all right, I'll talk to him. Let me see what I can do here.
Yeah. Brought in the big guns and made the trip. Tell me about this picture that you sent my way of you two standing in front of that board.
So that was in the squad room when we were getting ready to bowl team event. They have this like scrolling thing up on that big screen that shows like people with mile marker, number of years at the tournament. And they had our names up there, one on top of the other as previous champions. And I was just like, hey, we got to run up there. We got to get a picture in front of that, before we bowl. And so that's just how that came to be.
Did you have to wait a long time as the thing scrolled?
Yes.
Names and dates?
And I'm like, we just need to wait till our names are up there before we get up there, because we're standing in front of the entire squad, of everybody in there, which I hate. And I was like, let's just wait till our names are up there. Like, no, get up there and so that you're ready when your name is up there. So we ended up standing up there for a few minutes, but it was worth it to get the picture.
Yeah, for sure. No, a great picture that you can obviously cherish for years to come. Rich, let's get right into your bowling story. I want to tell you about a little message exchange I had with Jeff Riggles, who told me
Oh,
that you
boy.
are never afraid to be a straight shooter with your opinions. He says once when he was a teen phenom of sorts, he said you called him a flailing cranker and didn't mean it as a compliment. And he threw an LOL in there. He says that your view later changed, needless to say. Do you remember calling him the flailing cranker?
Distinctly. Actually, I did call him a flailing cranker, and he was. On an open shot, he could run away from a field. He could strike with anybody, okay?
Yeah.
At that point in time, he was young and didn't know anything about bowling yet. And he made the comment to me that he says, well, what do you think my chances are on the tour? And we still laugh about it today, but I told him, I said, with your ball and my brains, we get rich. I said, you don't have a chance. And then he proceeded to go out and learn how to bowl and made a liar out of me. Well, wasn't a liar at the time, but took it. I figure you say something smart ass comment like that, it does one of two things. Guy will either go crawl in the hole, and if it does, he ain't gonna be any good anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. And if it ignites him and he goes, oh yeah, watch this, which my daughter got one of those genes from me. Somebody says you can't do something, and her brain goes, yeah, watch this. He did. And when you take somebody to come up young as a cranker and learned how to bowl, and he learned how to bowl at nationals. He's the only person, to my knowledge, that's ever had 90 clean frames at nationals. He's learned how to bowl. He bowls well at the Peterson. Now, if you can't make spares and throw the ball straight when you have to, okay, you can't bowl at the Peterson. And he's learned how to do all of it. So he's become the real deal. There's no question about it. And anybody that disputes it doesn't know bowling.
Yeah. Jenny, have you experienced that side of your dad in maybe an inopportune time when, maybe he, kind of cracks on you a little bit and it makes you either want to crawl in the hole or say, watch this?
Well, he pretty much cracked on me all the time growing up. I think he felt like I had a lot of people from a really young age telling me that I was good at bowling, and not that he didn't think the same thing, but I think he wanted to make sure that my feet stayed squarely on the ground, and that I didn't let what other people were saying to me allow me to get arrogant or think I was better than anybody or get complacent. And maybe I could have backed up a little bit on that when I was younger, but yeah, he's a hard critic. If you get a compliment from Rich Wonders, you did something.
Yeah. Rich, where does that come from? Is that, you get that from parents, family, or?
No, I just, evident gene I got. When I grew up learning how to bowl, I looked up to the better bowlers around. When I first started bowling PBA tournaments, when my squad was done, and I'd never joined the PBA, but I bowled numerous ones as an amateur. I get done, I go sit in the stands and I watch people that were bowling well and say, why are they carrying and this guy isn't? Trying to put everything together. The more you learn about it, the better you're going to be. And I used to critique people, critique this. I always felt that I was a fairly good judge of talent. I put together what I consider probably one of the best teams that's ever bowled nationals at one point. And I handpicked the bowlers. It wasn't, pick game my buddy wants to bowl, let him bowl with us. No, it wasn't. It was, if I ask you to bowl, you're a bowler. So anyway, that's kind of where I got it. And I watch people when they bowl in tournaments, how they react. I always felt there were tons of bowlers around that threw the ball better than I did and couldn't beat me. Okay. They didn't have it up to concentration level. They didn't have it the heart to go out and grind it, which you have to do sometimes. And you put all those together, and you find a bowler in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And when first time I knew Jenny had it, she was 17 years old. I entered her in the National Queens Tournament in Milwaukee. First 3 games, she shot 490 something. First 3 games of qualifying. Right? Now,
Yeah.
17 years old, that's something that'll get you to crawl in a shell and put your head down, right?
Right.
After 6, she was plus.
5.
Plus 5?
No, after
5
5 games.
Oh, it's 5-game block?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No, it wasn't, because you
Yes.
shot 700 the next 3. It was 5-game block, wasn't it?
I think she's saying after 5 she was plus, but there may have been another one.
No,
after.
it was a 5-game block.
Oh.
I was minus 105 after 2.
Yeah.
And I was plus 5 after 5 at the end of the block.
Oh.
Well, I knew at the end of the block she had gone from minus 100 to plus, and I'm thinking, you don't do that if you're a quitter.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's at a really young age where it's real easy to throw in the towel.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. How about your I guess introduction to the sport rather? Where does that all begin for you?
slowly. I mean, I bowled in junior league when I didn't start till I was in junior high school.
Okay.
Bowling in junior league. I love bowling. In the wintertime, we used to go out and shovel sidewalks and earn $2 or $3 and head right to the bowling alley and spend it bowling. My dad was very instrumental in supporting my bowling. At one time, I think I had $1 a week allowance. Now we're going back when $1 was a lot more. It was 4 games of bowling back then.
Yeah.
And he asked me one day, he says, would you like to get a raise on your allowance? I said, sure. He says, how about $5? And my eyes lit up like that was a fortune back then.
Sure.
He says, the only stipulation, you have to spend that on bowling.
Huh.
I couldn't spend it on candy. I couldn't spend it on entertainment, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And no problem with that. I could bowl all day. So that happened there. And then I went from that to when I was going to college, I had a semester off, and my dad was tending bar at Surf Bowl in Kenosha. The owner talked him into working there. And he said, well, you really need a bartender. I said, I'll 10 bar. My son can bowl for nothing. He goes, done. So I was going to that semester. I was not going to school. Every day noon, I'd go down to bowling alley and I'd bowl. And Bob Larson, who ended up on my tournament team, worked at American Motors, would show up at 3 o'clock or shortly after when he got out of work, and we'd bowl till 5. And we did this 5 days a week. And I always said that my going from a good bowler to a top level bowler happened with all the games I got in that semester.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Was there coaching or do you feel like you were kind of self-taught?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
My game was a lot of it was a feel game. Okay. I mean, I watched mechanics and I watched this and I watched that and tried to analyze, but like I said, I watched guys physically throw the ball. I thought threw them a lot better than me. And I used to have guys tell me all the time, I watch you and you hit 3 different spots and they all hit the pocket. At the bottom of the swing, I used to make a little adjustments when I'd hit it or lay off it, or I could feel it because I'd bowled a lot. Okay. So mine was not an overly mechanical game, but it was definitely a feel game. I could feel it when I'm letting go. I know what I want to do at the bottom. I can't do it anymore because my knee don't let me sit still long enough for my arm to get all the way through sometimes. But that was where my game was at one point.
Sure. When you talked about how, all that bowling in that house in Kenosha kind of made you feel like you were getting better? Where was the point where you started, competing in tournaments and things like that?
Well, I was already doing it at that time.
Yeah.
And I had already joined the Wisconsin Non-Professional Bowlers Alliance at that point. The following year after that, I won my first non-pro title, and numerous other ones after that. But yeah, I was always competitive in anything I did. I mean, that was a given. I don't care what it was. If I was playing pool, playing baseball, bowling, whatever it was, I didn't like to lose.
At some point in the early 70s, you become owner of Hillside Lanes in Racine. Tell me how that happened and why you wanted to get into the business of the sport.
Well, when I was going to college, I worked road construction for 7 years. Good pay, paid my way through college. Knew I didn't want to do that for a living. Ended up getting a degree in accounting, but my love was bowling. And my partner at the time turned out to be my partner. Him and I bowled together on tournament teams for a while. And he, same thing, loved bowling, wanted to get into it. And we had an opportunity to get in it. We didn't have any money. We got into it with nothing down, basically. And spent a lot of hours in it, getting it built up, but made it 47 years there. So
yeah. Jenny, does that place, kind of become a second home for you eventually?
Yeah, I think I probably logged more hours in there than my house growing up, except for in the summer. But in the summer, my sister and I were basically the janitors that cleaned the place because we were never open in the summer. We took summers off. So we went through and did things like back when they allowed smoking in bowling alleys, we washed walls in the summers and pulled shaker boards out of pin setters and took them outside and scrubbed them. And, but yeah, I was pretty much there every day after school my whole life.
Yeah. I was gonna say there's my buddy Derek Michaud. Thanks for joining us live. He says, "Hey buddy, hey everyone." Rich, I also got a nice message from Lenny Bohr. She said that you were one of his idols growing up. As you mentioned, you guys you were teammates with Bob Larson. He said he watched you guys bowl the old non-pro circuit when he was a teenager and learned. And that you were always around to kind of give him a helping hand with his physical game when he hung out at Hillside. Did you see? Did you ever see what would become of Lenny in those early days?
Well, to be real honest, when Lenny was young, when he first went on the tour, I didn't know why. He was terrible. He went on the tour, but he learned out there. He learned a lot. And he had what it takes to be a bowler. He had the heart and the concentration. And yeah, he's been the real deal. And it helps growing up around people who are used to winning. You kind of expect it. It's not something that nobody else has ever done. So I'm, scared to get to that level. He's been exceptional, and his longevity is really the key. I quit bowling competitively probably in my late 40s for a number of reasons. A lot of the tournaments that I always bowled folded, and I never practiced when I was young. I did when I was telling you back about surf, but once I got into tournaments and that, I just bowled so many tournaments. I was getting games in, 24 games on a weekend, during the week. Practice, I got bored and didn't concentrate, so I quit doing it because it didn't do me any good. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. You had mentioned that you bowled some PBA events, but didn't go out on tour or I'm assuming get a card or anything like that. Is that because of how you felt practicing, or were there other reasons?
No, there are numerous reasons I can get on tour. I watched the guys on the tour, and 90% of them were bowling bums, and I felt like I could beat 90% of them with my eyes closed. The other 10% were unbeatable. Okay, and if you weren't in the top 10%, you couldn't make a living out there. There wasn't money. If they had the money the golf tour had, I'd have been on the tour and retired before I was 40. But so I did it. Plus, I had a business and I had a family, and to give them up and go out running around the country, I just had no interest in it. Got to bowl the PBA tournaments. I've had a 4th and an 11th in a national stop, and I've got a PBA regional title. So for what little I bowled them, that was not terrible.
Yeah, not at all. Jenny, do you ever wonder how things might have turned out different if he had made the opposite decision and tried to go out on tour?
I don't know. It's not something I really thought about a lot. I think he would have been really successful if he had gone out on tour, and staying, not doing it had nothing to do with him thinking he could or could not succeed out there. I think he's made it pretty clear he feels like he could have been successful to a degree, but it just wasn't what he wanted to do,
Yeah. So, Rich, you end up bowling tournaments around the area, around the Midwest, and you end up bowling internationally. Tell us how that happened, and and what it was like to shoe up for international competition.
It was probably my most memorable bowling. In order to qualify back when I did, you had to finish in the top 10 amateur all events at nationals. Okay. And they take 2 years of top 10, so 20 bowlers, and 4 from the military, and they go to a 24-man qualifying team, call them team trials. At the end of the team trials, and they end up with a 24, end up with 16 round robin games at the end, the ones that made the cut. And the top 6 qualified for the USA team. Okay. And bowled in 81 in Winnipeg, Canada, in a zone, FIQ zone, and bowled in 83 in a FIQ World Tournament in Caracas. And there is not much you can tell to express the feeling when you're standing on a podium representing your country getting a medal. Yeah. I mean, you can try to explain it and nobody can ever tell what you felt.
Yeah. And you had that opportunity multiple times.
Yeah, I got, 5 or 6 FIQ medals. And I bowled Pan Am games in Caracas, Venezuela. And that was a year that was a demonstration sport. The following Pan Am games became a medal sport. So,
yeah. Jeff wants you to, quit holding back and tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, not something you typically have to worry about with anybody with the last name Wonders.
Yeah. The old standard rule is if you don't want to know the answer, don't ask the question.
Ask the question. No doubt. Let's get into the 82 ABC in Baltimore. You've got all events, doubles, singles. I mean, that was, as I described it, a tournament for the ages. What was it like to go through those 9 games and and score that well, do that well on one of the biggest stages in the sport?
Those 9 games were just all business. The 9 games the year before in Memphis, I was leading the all events. I was leading the singles, everything when we left that tournament. And didn't win anything. Okay. So we're bowling there. And again, we're bowling in March that goes till June. So you have no idea. You're just out there. Something a lot of people don't know. We won the doubles. My doubles partner, Daryl Mizell. We were bowling next to Gary Dereshevsky and Terry Kulibert, who were on my tournament team. They were ahead of us in doubles all the way till the last 8th or 9th frame of game 3 when we finally passed them. We're not worried about winning the tournament. We know we can't win if we can't beat them. And we were watching them bowling on the pair next to us, and we snuck by them and did it. And then longest 2.5 months of my life, waiting for somebody to knock us off. My singles got knocked off, but the all events, team all events, and doubles did not. So it turned out to be a great tournament. And I said, they'd always talked about it. That year, I had the most money won in 1 year at a national tournament. Okay. Well, obviously the prize funds have gone up, so that goes down the drain. I said, what they really need to do is list the number of places you finished, and the lowest number is the one that did the best. Okay. I had a first in singles, all events, doubles, that's 3. I had 3 in singles, that's 6, and 5 in the team event is 11. So for 5 events, my total was 11 spots. There was one other guy later, I think that came, I don't know if he beat it, came close to it, but had an outstanding nationals tournament. So I don't know if that was ever the best or not, but it was pretty impressive at the time.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned Daryl Mizell, another USBC Hall of Famer. How did you guys, hook up for, to be doubles partners and teammates?
Well, Daryl Mizell and I bowled in league together when I was going to college in Madison. He was from Madison. Him and my partner in the bowling alley, Norm Wilbur, the 3 of us were on one team at Swigler's in Madison when I was going to college. That's where we got together. Then later we were bowling and Mizell wasn't on my team, and I ended up kicking my partner off and picking Daryl Mizell up. I know my partner wasn't real happy about it, but I asked Mizell a couple times and he turned me down. Finally, I asked his wife, I said, does he have something against this? Why does he? And she goes, no, the team he's with has a sponsor. He can't afford all the entry fees. And I thought, that's it? We went and got a sponsor. I said, fine, we'll go get a sponsor. Done deal. Well, the first year that he bowled with us, him and I won the state doubles and the national doubles the same year with the exact same score, bowling right of first arrow at the state tournament and left of 4th arrow at nationals.
Wow.
So we shot 1364, which isn't much of today's scores, but obviously back then when you win a state and a national title, they're pretty good. But yeah, to win both of them the first year we got together. So he was the real deal.
Yeah. Many of us know what he did on the lanes. What was he like, as a teammate? Obviously you guys, you had the success. Was there good communication there? Was there chemistry between you two?
There was chemistry on our whole team. I still bowl. Well, Terry Kulibert couldn't bowl the last 2 years now. He's had health problems. But Bob Larson, Don Cook, myself, and Terry Kulibert, 4 of us off that 5-man team back in the 80s, still bowl senior state together. Okay. I watched so many good teams. They break up, change bowlers nonstop. There's always drama, arguments, this and that. We never had an argument on our team.
Oh.
And I would not have a drinker on my team. Now, I'm not saying we didn't go out and party, but we did after bowling, not before. When we went to bowl, it was all business. we bowl good, get done, then we go out and party. And that was the rule on my team, because I was basically a captain. I picked the bowlers and I told them up front what I expected, and we had a team kitty that we put half of whatever we won into the team kitty, but only up to a maximum of $200. Okay, so if you won 400, you put 200 in the kitty. If you won 4,000, you put 200 in the kitty. I didn't want somebody to end up being really great for a year or two and win a bunch of money and have to give half of it away.
Sure.
We always made enough money doing that kitty supported all our entry fees every year. We never had to go and assess a fine or assess to get money to pay entries. So I said, and because I did that and they all knew they could trust me with the money, it was always there. The entries were always paid on time. We never had money drama. I would get all the checks from the tournament. I would sign them all, cash them, and then I would write them one check for their share after the kitty was taken out, and a list of what they won and what came out, and just hard to find a team that can stay together that many years and never have drama.
No kidding. Yeah. Jeff said that, his joining your two Kendor Corp and later Faball teams was the single most important thing in his bowling development. He calls that group as good or better than his current group has been, which means he's been part of two of the greatest groups in USBC OC history.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Jeff also mentioned that regional win that you had in '86 in Algonquin, Illinois. He called it an unbelievably difficult condition. He said, played outside with a nail and a white dot. Middle of the lane is dead hooking, nearly 200 entries. Pete Weber gets the last check, and he was nearly 200 under. He said he got the last spot, made match play. He says he thinks he was about minus 25. He remembers Steve Wunderlich checking in a house ball during match play. He worked his way up, and he's got to beat Brad Snell in the semifinal to get to you. And he needed a strike, left a 4-pin in the 10th on a good shot. He hadn't won on the regional tour. He desperately wanted to bowl you for that title. It was a few months after your teams bowled ABC in Vegas, and he said the Faball 2 won team, and your Faball 1 team all events. So you end up beating Brad Snell for the title, and he said that he said that you told him something like "got one before you" or something like that, and
me. I don't remember it,
but with a big smile. He said you were a non-member at the time, and at that time, if you were a non-member and you won, you could never bowl again. So what? Tell me about that. I mean, what? Not the got one before you, but winning that tournament, and then kind of the downside to that.
Well, actually, I had always said, and I bowled 7 regionals. I made the match play in 6 out of the 7. I cashed in the other one. And I always said if I got a chance to win it, I would dump it so I could keep bowling. I just enjoyed bowling them, right? Well, unfortunately, by the time I got to that point, I was at the point where I probably wasn't going to be bowling competitively that much longer. And when I walked into that tournament, I heard 2 pros talking about, and I stopped to listen, they didn't know I was listening, talking about passing a rule that amateurs could only cash twice lifetime and they could no longer bowl again. So I spent time I was the top seed for the step ladder. So I spent time in the office with Johnny Weber, and bottom line, I got to the bottom. I said, well, what do you think the odds of them passing that rule are? And he said, well, just from all the talk, he said, I think if you dumped it on purpose, they'd pass that rule to spite you. And I said, then screw him. I'm going to go win it. And I walked out of his office. Call it arrogance, call it confidence. I call it confidence. It never went through my mind that Snell was going to beat me. I was either going to give it away so I could keep bowling, or I was going to win the tournament. Well, I beat him 240 something to 170 something, so tournament didn't last long. But I only averaged like 2-0 something for the whole tournament and won it. Okay, they were tough. You mentioned Wonderlick. Bowled a game against Jimmy Certain. Yeah, during the round robin match play. I know one of them shot a $139 game and won the game. So you don't find too many 139s winning match play in regional finals.
No, not at many levels. Are you going to win a match with a 139?
Right.
Derek says, "Good job, no drinking while bowling." I subscribe to that theory too. And Jeff says where he learned his team was 9 guys the same and 2 10th men from the 98 for 2 decades until USBC rules screwed us. Yeah, I mean,
among their other major full paths.
Yeah. So by 86, you're a regional champion. You're established obviously in the state and in the area. And Jenny, this is kind of where you come along. So how did you get into the sport? I mean, it kind of sounds like a dumb question, sitting there next to your dad, but I mean, some kids rebel against their parents. I mean, my 10-year-old is Exhibit A.
Well, I have an older sister that's 3 years older than me who bowled, and I actually started bowling junior league a month after I turned 4. I had a custom-made purple pearl hammer from my uncle who owned Fabwall, and that only weighed like 5 pounds, I think, because I was tiny. But yeah, my sister and I both bowled junior league, and she was really good. I got that competitive, like I want to bowl at the top level someday, and she didn't. So I don't know if she ever averaged over 200 because she hasn't bowled in a long time. But I think she was averaging in the 190s when she stopped and kind of didn't care. I mean, she went out and did it, but didn't really care to be really, really good at it. And I'm a lot like my dad. If I go do something, I hate losing. So I worked on it a lot when I was a kid. Like I said, I was there every day after school, and what did I do? I bowled pretty much. So that's how I got into it.
Sure. Rich, what was it like to see Jenny?
I just got a message from my sister saying that she averaged in the low 2 teens when she quit. Sorry, Cheryl.
Oh, come on, Cheryl. You can leave a comment. We're live. We've got a live chat here. Subscribe to the channel, like the page.
When I taught junior bowlers how to bowl, I taught them to take one step at the foul line, the real young ones, because trying to walk and coordinate an arm swing in time with their feet was not good.
Yeah.
So when Jenny started bowling at age 4 in league, which she'd been bowling quite a while before that, she was averaging about 50 by the time she was 4 years old. No bumpers, just straight bowling.
Yeah, they didn't do bumper leagues when I was 4 years old.
Yeah. Well, they did, but I didn't. Anyway, so when she joined the league, after a little bit, she got this, the big kids don't do this, I'm going to take an approach. So she would take 3 steps and then only swing the ball on the last 2, right? And the backswing was up over her head back then. So just like it is now. So then going down the road, we had a junior match game tournament that I invite top 10 boys, top 8 girls from the whole city based on average to bowl a round robin match game. So how old were you when you bowled the first one? 10 or 11?
10.
10. Okay. So she bowled it. She was throwing a 13-pound red conventional urethane hammer and finished second. and was bummed because she got beat. And she goes, I'm winning that next year. Well, this is up against high school girls up to 18 years old, right?
Yeah, the girl that beat me was 16 years old.
Yeah. So, and I'm thinking, yeah, good luck with that, right? So the next year, throwing the same 13-pound conventional, right? She wins the darn thing.
Oh.
And I kind of shocked me. Somebody made the comment to me, aren't you going to fix her approach? And she was still walking 3 steps before she swung the ball. And I said, when she's ready, she'll let me know. My big thing is, I don't care what you do, but at the foul line, you have to be right. You have to be in balance. You have to keep your shoulders still. She was doing all that. That's why I didn't get that worried. She walks up to me one day, I want to learn how to do it the right way. And I said, okay. So we started working on a 5-step approach. And I thought, boy, this is going to be a project, right? We spent an hour twice. At the end of the second hour, looked like she had been throwing 5 steps her whole life. Because she was so good at the finish, as soon as she got the push away and timing on the first step, the rest of it fell into place really quick. So I was pretty impressed with that. Yeah. So then from that 13-pound ball, she walked in my pro shop one day, and I had a 15-pound 3D offset hammer sitting on a rack in the back. And I had drilled one for a girl that wanted a 16 and really didn't realize I drilled the wrong ball. So I drilled her a 16 and threw that one on the rack. She stuck her hand in it. Were you 13 by then, I think?
Yeah, I think I was 13.
It just turned 13 or something. So she picks up this 15-pound ball, sticks her, and she goes, whose ball's this? Mine. Why? Can I try it? And yeah, go ahead. I figured, well, 15 pounds will slow her down a little bit. Backswing was still up over her head. She threw the first ball out. I turned left and just crushed the rack. Never touched the conventional grip again. That was it. That created a monster.
Wow. Jenny, what was the motivation? Was it, just to be the best that you could be? Was there any, oh my gosh, I'm Rich Wonder's daughter, I've got to live up to that legacy, anything like that?
I get asked that a lot. And a lot by men. And I never really felt like I felt that. And maybe it's because I'm not a son being compared to my dad. And maybe it would be different if it was my mom that was, the superstar. But I never felt that like I'm Rich Wonder's daughter. Like I always thought it was cool when people were like, oh, that's Rich Wonder's daughter. I was born with a dislike of losing for one, but I think having an older sister who had friends that were older than me, who were obviously as a kid all better than me, because at 3 years age difference is a lot when you're in high school or younger. I was always trying to keep up with them. Like I just wanted to keep up with the older kids. And for whatever reason, I always found it really fun to beat the boys. So there were always boys hanging around the bowling alley, around my sister's age. And that's probably where a lot of it started. And I actually started bowling adult leagues when I was 16 years old. Okay. High school bowling was kind of in its infancy. And most of my friends were like my sister's age, and they aged out of junior league and started bowling adult league, and I just kind of went with them. And then when I got into adult leagues, there was a lot of adult chatter of me not being good enough to do this or that or the other thing. And it's like, okay, you don't think I'm good enough? Well, let's find out, So then it was always trying to prove people wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to interject one thing if I can. Please. Because Rickles was on here.
Yeah.
The first time Jeff Rickles saw Jenny bowl was in a tournament in Madison. And he walked over. He goes, "Are you Rich Wonder's daughter?" And she goes, "Yeah." He goes, "How'd you learn how to throw the ball like that with him for a dad?" She had the ball back, huh?
The first thing he said was, "I've never seen a girl with a backswing like that." And he walked away. And then like 10 seconds later, he came walking back real fast. And he's like, "You're Rich Wonder's daughter?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "How the hell did you learn to throw the ball like that with him for a dad? How did you learn to hook the ball like that with him for a dad?" So that was how Jeff and I met.
And it worked for you.
At times.
Yeah, for sure. Your dad, kind of tuned me into an interview you did with Matt Cannizzaro a couple of years ago, and you went into great depth about the challenges that you've had health-wise over the years. How did that impact your bowling and your development in the sport?
It impacted it a lot. I would say when I was a kid, and when I say kid, I mean like before I graduated high school, I was diagnosed with lupus when I was 11. And I was sick a lot, but I was, had youth on my side, and I was also pushed through a lot. And then when I got to be like 19, 20, 21 years old, I started to really have a lot of problems. And it pretty much put a stop button in my mind on any like real elite bowling. I couldn't go out and do well, and there wasn't a ladies tour for a long time, but I couldn't really have even tried to do a tour at any point in my 20s because I wouldn't have had the stamina to do like the month of May this year. And I bowled those 2 national PWBA, 3 national PWBA stops and 2 PWBA regionals all in a month. And I bowled women's nationals that month. That's something I would never have been able to do in my 20s. My body just would not have let me. I'm thankfully in better health now than I was then. But yeah, I wonder a lot. I wonder a lot what I might have been able to accomplish if I felt good all the time and didn't have the challenges that come with being chronically ill.
Yeah.
I told you I always felt like it was a good assessment of talent. Between 18 and 22, 23 years old, she was scaring me with her talent. And I don't scare easy.
Yeah, there was a point in that interview with Matt where you described a time when you had contracted some type of bacteria and the doctor basically told you should be dead.
Yeah, like literally, that's what she said to me. So I had what's called medically, it's called necrotizing fasciitis, which is flesh-eating bacterial infection. We don't know where I got it. The bacteria that caused mine infection was Pseudomonas bacteria, which is the second most common bacteria found in a hospital after staph. And I was on an infusion medication at the time for my lupus that was really immunosuppressive to the point that we think, and there's no way to know, but we think that my immune system was just so compromised from this medication that I came into contact with a bacteria that's everywhere and my body just didn't fight it. And it's a long story. And I went into the hospital in Racine and ended up being transferred to Milwaukee the next day. And by the time I was transferred to St. Luke's in Milwaukee, I was not lucid anymore. Like the infection was so bad. Like I would try to talk and gibberish would come out. But I do remember saying to my mom, it was April Fool's Day. And I remember saying to my mom, April Fools are going to cut my leg off today because there was a spot on my leg that was black. And I remember like really calmly going in my head thinking like, well, if they take it below the knee, it won't be so bad. If they have to take it above the knee, it'll be a little more difficult to get back to bowling and horseback riding, but I'll figure it out. Like this going through my head, but yeah, they hit the ground running with me in Milwaukee and did a surgery, and the hole that they had to cut in my right calf was 9 centimeters tall from top to bottom, 7.5 centimeters wide, and it was 1.7 centimeters deep. It was pretty gnarly, and I spent 16 days in the hospital. And I wore a wound vacuum for 4 months, and then I had a skin graft and spent another 7 days in the hospital. But when I woke up from that first surgery to remove the infection, the doctor was there. The surgeon was in the ICU room, and she said, I can't tell you why you're not dead because everything we know about medicine says you should be.
Wow.
With my immune system complications and the fact that the infection had kind of gotten a little out of hand in Racine before I got transferred to Milwaukee because I don't know, they weren't taking me serious. I don't know what the problem was. It was very clear that there was a real problem. But yeah, long story short, I've got a groovy scar out of it. And I don't have any residual pain or like there's no repercussions from it in any way except visually I have a scar on my leg, and that is easily best case scenario because even after they did the first surgery, they warned us that they might have to go in again because even though it looks like they got it all, it's possible that it's still in there, and the only way to stop it is to cut it out. So it only can get to a certain point, and you lose limbs, you lose hands, feet, legs, and I squeezed through all of that without having that happen. So very, very fortunate.
Yeah. I'm assuming that's a big relief, not only to you, but also to you, Rich.
Yeah. Well, we've both been close at one time or another, and good fortune obviously has kept us going. So right now we're both actually been pretty healthy. So
yeah, knock on wood.
Yeah.
For sure. No, Lenny had told me that he doesn't get to see you bowl much these days, but he said you're so good. He thinks you've really matured and come into your own the last few years now that you're healthy. Tell me, I mean, obviously there's the physical part of that, but what about the mental part? I mean, being healthy, not having to worry about that as you're taking on a competitive sport like bowling has got to make things worlds easier.
Well, here's the thing with me. When I say healthy,
it's relative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, even going into the tour season this year where I did these PWBA stops, which I've never done before, knowing that every tournament, well, except Queens, was 12 games in one day, I was worried. I had no idea how my body was going to react to it, because if I overstress myself physically, I can cause a flare, which can be debilitating fatigue. It can be debilitating pain. It can be fevers. I was mentally prepared and okay with having to withdraw from future tournaments if I just got to a point where my body wasn't going to handle it. And I've been in physical therapy. I've got I have a hip problem. I was at age 29. I was told by 3 surgeons I needed a total hip replacement on my left hip, which is my slide leg. Mm-hmm. And back then I had an alternative surgery to repair the labral tendon, which was torn, and do a femoroplasty. And we're kind of kicking the can down the road. The joint needs a replacement, but we want to get me to at least 40. But as a result, I periodically go to physical therapy just to try to stay strong. And I did that prior to the season this year. And it is incredibly helpful. I have an amazing physical therapist in Milwaukee who's worked with the Milwaukee Admirals. I know, I think the Marquette basketball team he worked with. But I drive an hour and 15 minutes each way twice a week to see him.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think I mentioned it up top, but you're in Roscoe, Illinois, which is kind of near Rockford. So that's not right across the street.
Right. And it's worth it. I was there this morning and he kicked my butt. But without Nate, like nothing I've done good in the bowling in the last 8 years since I had my hip surgery would have been possible.
Yeah.
My entire 20s were trashed between my lupus and my hip. And having that surgery and then having Nate rehab me back has made it all possible. But my lupus also, so not the infusion medication I was on when I had my leg infection, but there's a different infusion I get when I get sick now that, I think it was just in my Facebook memories. It was like 10 years ago. I had the first infusion of it, but it was the first drug to be approved for lupus since 1953.
Wow.
And since I've gotten that medication, my prednisone dose went from anywhere from 20 to 40 milligrams a day down to 5. And my health has dramatically improved with it. But yeah, it's always something like I have to think about and kind of micromanage every aspect of my life if I'm going to go to a really competitive tournament, because if I don't get enough sleep, my body can shut down. It can blow up with pain. If I overdo it, same thing. If I underdo it, can cause the same thing. If I'm not active enough, if I don't do enough. So it's a constant like balancing act and just learning. And I know like every athlete to a degree deals with that. It's just kind of magnified when you're dealing with a health issue and medications and the way the medications react to your body, figuring out when is the best time to take pain medicine to get ready to bowl a block. Is it 2 hours before I start? Is it 1 hour before I start? How much of it should I take? Because it's got to last for, just so long. There's just a lot of things to think about. But I feel like I'm in as good a place right now as I've ever been. And I say that with torn cartilage in my left knee that I have to go get taken care of. But that's like a normal people issue. I tell people like I can deal with like the normal sick stuff. The lupus sick stuff is so much harder to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, and just something quick on her guy that does her rehab, Nate. When he first met her, she was explaining to him that she was a bowler. He went and studied bowlers to see what muscles to work on. That is somebody that's going over and above the call of duty to make it better for the person they're working on.
Yeah, when I went back to him for my second appointment ever, he had pulled up Chris Barnes tutorials on mechanics and developed a program for me to get back to doing that. And that was impressive to me that he took the initiative on his own and took me seriously when I'm like, I'm a competitive bowler and not like, oh, bowling's not a sport. Is bowling a sport? Right. I'm not sure. It was like, oh, you do this competitively. Okay, then let me learn as much as I can. And then so I can help you as best I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. I don't want to forget to talk about 2019 too, because we mentioned off the top, you guys are the first father-daughter combination to both win Eagles at the OCs. Tell me about that tournament. I mean, I think the score was like 1876 standard division, and then you have to wait for 45 days to find out if it holds.
Yeah, so that's kind of funny. So I hadn't bowled nationals in a few years. Todd's group, my fiance Todd, Chell, they had 2 people back out of their group pretty last minute, like within a month, I think, of when we were supposed to bowl. And I was already bowling in the group, but not on Todd's team. And Todd kind of went to bat for me with the rest of his team and said, I want Jenny on our team. I want her to be put in that spot of the person who, backed out. And all I thought was, I just want to pull my weight, because I don't want to hear, here we go, Todd had to have his girlfriend bowl, and look at how she wrecked it for the whole team because she didn't bowl good. But it was so much fun having a group of people that actually work together to break lanes down and lane play, and obviously made a world of difference because I had the best nationals at that point that I'd ever had. Did not know that I was not in the regular division until I tried to get into brackets, and was informed that I checked the wrong division on my bracket sheet. And the way the math worked out, my total pins for those 3 years that they took to come up with my average, if I had knocked down 21 more pins total out of those 27 games, I would have been in the regular division, not the standard division. So that's how close I was to not being in the standard division. Yeah. And I didn't look at leaderboards. I wasn't, again, like my brain just wasn't thinking about different divisions like that. And it's probably a good thing, because I probably wouldn't have won an Eagle if I had known getting down towards the end that I had a shot. And I ended on a poor note. I needed a spare in the 10th frame of the last game to shoot 600 in singles, and I would have had 600 in all 3 sets. And I left a 7-pin, and I missed it by 5 feet. And then had to, through my little fry, my meltdown I had, teammates trying to shake me and calm me down and tell me I just took the lead in all events, and by 2 pins or 3 pins, I think, at the time. So it was crazy. It was just a whirlwind crazy thing.
Yeah. And it's okay to tell them that you were high out of all 10 in 19 and this year.
I wasn't going to mention that, but
me either.
I'm glad somebody did. Rich, we talk about all the success in the OC and all that stuff. Can I ask you about 2005? Because Mark Walkerman mentioned that you let off some stink bombs after Paddock at Nationals that year. Said you were warned by USBC not to do it, but you did. They suspended you, and he ended up taking your place.
I was suspended for a year. He took my place. What they didn't say is I didn't set one off that year.
Oh,
okay. Because of
big long controversy because of USBC. My dad was standing in ball check-in with Don Cook when they came and got him for doing it.
Okay.
They
the year before, because of 9/11, they had all kinds of worries about odd smells, this and that. And they called me and told me, I said, okay, I won't do it again. Well, somebody set one off that year. So the guy in the scale room, you familiar with the stadium at Reno?
Not really.
They call it the atrium. You go to the last lane and you walk past the lanes to the back where the paddock is.
Okay.
He passed me going to the paddock there. He got up front where the check-in was, smelled an odor, called the tournament director who was off site, and said, some stink bomb here. And the tournament director said, eject him now. Okay, so I got pulled off, didn't get to bowl doubles, singles. Okay. So we had a big thing. I got to go like a court thing, ABC, their kangaroo court.
Yeah.
And had Jack Mordini on the line, and I got to cross-examine, and I said, so there was a moratorium that if a stink bomb went off, no matter what, I was the one to be ejected? No, there was nothing like that. Well, the only thing the tournament director knew at the time was that a stink bomb went off and I was in the building.
Because he was off site.
So it was obviously set that it went off. So during this big court deal, they said, well, I talked to Mordini once before that, and he said, we got video. I said, well, you got video of me setting off a stink bomb. I'd really like to see it, because I said I didn't do it, right? Well, we get to this thing, and they had video. What they had, the only video they had was me walking past registration on the way to the atrium, okay, from my back. And they were asking my teammates, what color shirts were you wearing there? And I said, if you're trying to figure out that's me, that's me. You don't have to ask questions about that, right? Mm-hmm. So they went through all that. They still suspended me, okay? And it was a done deal before we ever walked in, no matter what was brought up.
Yeah, they were going to suspend him because they made themselves look like, I'll say idiots instead of what I really want to say, by throwing a Hall of Famer out of nationals for something that he didn't do and that nobody saw him do.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to, and nobody ever testified. They have witnesses there just that they saw me do anything. Just that I was there when it went off.
And nobody's denying that we set stink bombs off at nationals in years prior to that, because I did too, along with a lot of other people. We are certainly not the only people to do it.
The other scary part, during that thing, we asked if that was the only stink bomb that went off that year. No, there were 3 other times that stink bombs had gone off.
But nobody else.
When I wasn't around.
Nobody else.
Okay, so this wasn't something that I was the only person that ever did that.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I told you in the, before we went on yesterday, I've never been to the Open Championships. So yeah, I guess I didn't realize that was even a thing. So
yeah, the stink bombs are really good though. You can clear a room out.
I believe it. Jenny, this year you mentioned that you were bowling some national PWBA Tour stops, and luckily for us, I happened to be at one of them. So I mean, we'll be able to see a little of your bowling. But tell us about about doing that. I mean, is this the first year that you've done it, or?
It is. In 2020, I bowled a PWBA regional in Clinton, Iowa, like literally the last weekend before COVID shut everything down. And I did not make the cut there, but I cashed. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't done anything since. I say I've never bowled a PWBA event. I did bowl the National Queens tournament a couple times when I was like 17, 19, and 20, or 17, 18, and 19, something like that. Mm-hmm. But this must have been in Minnesota. I don't think I threw that many strikes in the whole tournament in Rockford.
Yeah, this one's about an hour and a half from me, so it's a little easier to get to than Rockford was.
Yeah, but other than Queens, I had never bowled a national PWBA stop. And with them being so close to where I live, it's like, if I'm ever going to give it a shot, it's it's now. If I'm not going to do it when it's 20 minutes from my house, then I might as well just forget about it, you know?
Sure. Yeah. What, what was it like for you? Was it everything you thought it would be?
The bowling left a little to be desired.
Okay.
But you learn really fast where your weaknesses are. And I learned a lot about my mental game and its deficits and what I needed to work on. And I came home from the last tournament and I bought 4 books on sports psychology, because every tournament, if I started to struggle, I got myself into a really bad headspace, and I know better, but it's how do you stop yourself from doing it, even if you know better? And I had one of the girls that I crossed with, Felicia Wong, was exceptionally kind to me, and a lot of the women out on tour have little notebooks that they write in as they're bowling. And you can see they're keeping score, but you can see they're writing a lot of other stuff too. And I had asked Felicia before the regional in Minnesota, I said, hey, when we're done bowling, can I pick your brain over like what you're writing about in your notebook? Like, I see a lot of the really top players doing it. If the best are doing it, I want to do it too.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, no problem. And then I had a horrible, horrible day on the lanes, and she ended up being top seed, I think, for step ladder. So she had to get ready to bowl a step ladder, and I had a 5-hour drive to get home, so I didn't get a chance to talk to her. And a couple days later, she went out of her way to message me on Facebook and say, hey, we didn't get a chance to chat. Do you want to chat about this? Oh. And I said, yes. And so we talked. And it was really helpful. And I've got a lot of things. And I also went and saw Bill Spigner to work on my physical game, because I had clear deficits there that were costing me. And that helped a ton. I did that before we went to nationals, and I had the highest all events at nationals this year I've ever had, in spite of missing 5 spares during doubles and singles. But yeah, it's fun. Bowling against and with the best that there are, to me, is fun. I didn't have fun when I wasn't bowling great necessarily, but being in that environment, you learn so much. And I would like to be able to call myself a really good bowler, but if you don't go and test yourself on the really hard stuff, you can't really do that. And I'm okay with saying, yep, I went and did it, and I fell flat on my face for the most part. The national stop in Minnesota, I did okay. I didn't make the cut. I didn't cash, but I did okay. I just had a couple spots where I had some really bad games that were just too big of a deficit. But that's how you learn. You don't learn how to bowl on tour unless you go bowl on tour. Yeah. And I was very pleasantly surprised at physically how well my body held up through that grueling month. Because like I had to bowl PTQ to even get into the Rockford tournament. So that was another 8 games the day before the practice session of that tournament. It was a test my body's never had before, and it held up really well. So that was good. So all in all, it was a good experience, and I learned a lot, and I'm going to work on all the things that I came home and said, you know what, this was a problem, this was a problem, this was a problem, and try it again next year.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Rich, you had said earlier that, you had Hillside for about 47 years. I had heard that you sold off a while back. What was that like for you?
A relief.
Yeah.
I was ready to get out.
Yeah.
The last few years there, I worked very little, didn't put a lot into it, let the business kind of slide down. Bowling was going down anyway, and I didn't work at it anymore, and had two young men that worked for me that basically took care of everything, or I'd have gotten out of there a lot sooner. But my wife was still working at the time, and when she retired from CNH, she says, "I want you out." Well, then it still took me 2 years to get rid of it, but we finally got out. So now we're free, nothing to do, and you have to check our schedule every day because we can't find any free time.
It's funny how that works, isn't it? Jenny, when you're not bowling or around home, you are traveling with your fiance who bowls on the PBA 50 Tour. Brag on him a little bit. What's he all about on the lanes?
So it's going out on tour with Todd is fun for a lot of reasons. One, because I just love watching him bowl. The first year we were together, he made a top 5 step ladder in North Carolina, and that was just really awesome to see him in his element and bowling really great. It's also fun because all of the superstars that I watched and idolized growing up on TV are on the PBA 50 Tour now. So, you're rubbing elbows with Amelito Monticelli and Norm Duke, and well, not anymore, but at the time, Norm Duke and Pete Weber and, Walter Ray. And it's really cool to get to meet those guys on a human level and just see how they are and all, their goofy, quirky personalities. And it's just a lot of fun. The PBA 50 Tour has been, I think, really welcoming to me, the bowlers and, the wives, because you get to know the wives that come out with them too. And everybody's been super nice and friendly, and it's just a blast to be out there.
Yeah. Obviously, you're, doing some bowling, gearing up for, what you said would be another season of stops at the PWBA. Rich, are you bowling these days?
Yep, I bowl 3 games a week in league, and for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I bowled. The only tournament I bowled was senior state.
Okay.
And this year I got stuck bowling 4 tournaments. And I won the singles in the senior state in the 75 up division.
Wow.
This year. So it gave me one more little in my thing. I have now got a tournament title in 7 different decades.
Wow. That's incredible. That's just incredible. I mean, that's, Jenny, when you think about that, I mean, what, how do you define, a legacy like that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It's special. I don't know how else to really put it. There aren't a lot of people out there that can say something like that. Especially, not just titles in that many decades, but the level of the achievements, and I said this, like I made a comment on one of Jeff Riggle's Facebook posts about it. I have a quote eagle. My eagle is not comparable to his, not in any way, shape, or form. I actually think it's a little bit of a disservice. I think it's a big disservice to people who have eagles like my dad's to call eagles like mine eagles, because they're nowhere close to the same level of achievement. I think they should be called something. They should be distinguished. And again, I still think it's cool to be able to say, yeah, my dad and I both have eagles, but I also grew up in this sport amongst the best of the best, and it shouldn't be called an eagle. But yeah, what my dad has done in bowling especially as an amateur, it's one thing to talk about somebody like Parker Bone or Pete Weber who did nothing but bowl for a living for their entire life. And it takes somebody like my dad, who was a bowling center proprietor and bowled as an amateur and still did the things he did, you know.
Yeah.
We were basically called weekend warriors.
I was trying to find that comment, and I thought it was on one of your posts, and you and Jeff post to Facebook a lot, and I couldn't find it because he had mentioned that. He said the statement that you made regarding bowling with your dad and how your standard eagle isn't the same as as his 5 regular eagles. He says that shows you that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that you're not afraid to identify as a real bowler and stand up for the sport. So I thought
Well,
that was
thank
kinda
you,
neat.
Jeff, but
Yeah.
it's just the truth.
Yeah. I cannot get you guys out of here without mentioning this comment from Todd. He wants you to make sure, or me to make sure, I ask you about how you first met.
Oh, he is such a little turd. So it's too bad we can't like buzz him into this because he loves to tell this story. But you know, Todd, I'm going to tell the follow-up to it too. So we were bowling a singles double elimination tournament in Burlington at Town and Country Lanes.
Mhm.
And they were going to run a men's and a women's separate event that year, and the women's ended up folding. They didn't get enough entries, so I'm like, what the hell, I'll just bowl the men's. And we got to, I think it was the 3rd round, and both of us were undefeated. And the first match was actually a 3-game set that you had to total pin. But then after that, it was just 1 game. But we had to bowl against each other. We had never met, had no clue who each other were. And he wound up beating me by 1 pin and dealt me my first loss of that tournament. And he lorded that over me for 4 years. And we had not bowled against each other head to head since then until March of this year in Clinton, Wisconsin. They run a monthly tournament the first Saturday of every month. And it was the day after I got my phase 4, which was still is like my favorite bowling ball. And I was really ticked off about the nationals thing, but I ended up being top seed for the step ladder, and Todd was 2 seed. So him being 2 seed, he had a match to bowl to get to bowl me. And I said, you better win that match because I want to bowl you and I owe you one.
Yeah.
And he did not win that match. And I did not beat him by just 1 pin. I shot 279 that game.
Oh, wow.
And I think we were tied for like 7 frames of that match. And I think he ended up shooting like 223, something along those lines.
Okay. But yeah, you got him. That's for
so
sure.
So we're 1-1 now.
Yeah. All right. Well, just because I couldn't buzz him in doesn't mean he can't come on a future episode, and which is a great segue to what I call off the sheet. And that's where I ask you guys to challenge somebody else. Doesn't have to be the greatest bowler in the world, but somebody who's passionate about the sport, has a unique story to tell, to be on a future episode of the show. So, Rich, why don't I start with you? Who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef?
Lenny Borch.
Okay. He's actually been on one before.
Oh, he has been.
Yeah, he's done Lenny already.
I
knew that.
But, 2 things. You can give me somebody else, and there may be an opportunity for Lenny to come on because he's done a lot of stuff since then that I'd kind of like to talk with him about. So let's kind of keep that in, on the back burner here. Jenny, who would you like to challenge?
Man, I've been thinking about this since you mentioned it the other day. And it popped into my head today, and I think it fits. I think Brianna Clemmer would be a great one.
Yeah.
After what she did in Florida and shooting that 879 and winning that stop, I mean, that's an incredible thing right there. I think she would be a good one.
Yeah. I totally agree. Like she said, that historic tournament win, and she's doing, I think, still doing some college coaching at Belmont Abbey. At least she was this past season. So yeah, Brianna, if you see or hear about this and need, want to take Jenny up on her challenge, be sure and let me know. You can find me on Facebook or email bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com. Rich, is there anybody else besides Lenny that you'd like to challenge? There's nothing wrong with getting a double in the 10th going off the sheet, right?
Yeah, I hadn't really looked at a backup on that.
How about Todd?
Sure.
I also thought about Gus Yannaris, that he would be. I didn't look at who all you've had on your show or not, so I wasn't sure if you had him yet.
Yep.
But Gus Yannaris is a character, and he's so fun to talk to, and he's got a lot of bowling stories.
Yeah, he actually did come on pretty early on in the run, and he had a thing that he did at the beginning of the episode called the Mount Rushmore of Wisconsin bowling. So it's a good listen and a good watch if those of you who haven't seen it. But yeah, Gus would be another one that there's enough of his story that we could definitely bring him back. Anyway, our next
for you, Mark Walkerman.
Yep, he's been on too.
He's been on already.
I had him and Margie came on a couple Valentine's days ago, and they both shared their story. We're into 86 episodes now. I've tried to make the rounds. But next week we've got another bowling story with some Team USA flavor to it. Matthew Farber from down the road from you guys in the Chicagoland area, coming on Wednesday, August 10th, 6 p.m. Central. He is with KR Strike Force now, has some time with Team USA, inside bowling in the rearview mirror, and likely lots to say about the great sport of bowling. So be sure and tune in to check out Matt's bowling story. Rich, Jenny, I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for coming on.
More for you.
Yeah. Oh, do it, please.
Amleto.
There you go.
Monticelli.
That's one I haven't gotten.
Challenge. He actually bowled in the 1981 FIQ tournament that I bowled in, representing Venezuela when he was 19 years old.
Okay. All right. And he must have been memorable back then, if to.
Yeah. I remember, and I've talked to him at a couple of pro stops along the way since,
And the first time I met him, when I told him my name, he remembered my dad and the year they bowled against each other right away.
There you go. All right. Well, Amleto, same drill. If you're willing to, take Rich up on his challenge, let me know.
Got a good background coming from Venezuela. You'd have a great story.
There you go. Yeah, for sure. bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com is the address, and we will definitely make that happen. Well, like I said, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate both of you coming on, and best of luck moving forward. With bowling and all the rest. Really glad to have you both on at the same time.
Thanks for asking. It was fun.
Just remember to tell people it's not only an hour show.
Well, not when you're on it.
We went to overtime. Can you guess who's had the record so far?
I'd say John Peterson if I thought you'd interviewed him.
No, I haven't. Charlie Tapp went for about 2 hours and 15 minutes. I could see that. So yeah, it's not really an hour show. I just kind of use that as a guide, but yeah, I'll go as long as we need to, to get
I feel better about our hour and a half now.
Oh, yeah. No worries at all. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on, everybody. Thanks for watching. Be sure and tune in next week on Wednesday when we're back. Until then, be just and fear not. We'll see you next week.